Hello.
Speak right into it. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I am here to give a brief presentation on a short sale experience I had earlier in the year. It's going to be, I guess, a series that we're offering through the brokerage, just to kind of share experiences and talk about the turmoils of short sales and how to get through it. So this is for a property located at 5433 West 134th Place over in Hawthorne, and that's a picture of the front of the home. There had been some upgrades to the home. You can see the windows had been swapped out. The kitchen had been partially remodeled, so there were some upgrades. It had an add-on in the back. So some basic transaction details, buyer information. So this actually was a floor time call that I picked up the buyer on. She called in at the Redondo office and advised she was a first-time home buyer, was pre-approved up to actually about $800,000. She had really good income. She did want to do FHA financing, and she was looking kind of all throughout the South Bay, so all the way from South Redondo, obviously all the way up to El Segundo, Holly Glen area. So the property itself, as you saw from the picture, is a single-family home. It's 3 bedrooms, 1 3/4 baths, about 1,504 square feet. So as I mentioned, there had been an addition in the back. Those typical Holly Glen homes are a little smaller than that. This had a family room added onto the back. Was built in 1955, Holly Glen area, as I mentioned, and the list price was $530,000. If I remember correctly, I think the owner had bought it, I think in 2005, for about $565,000, and then he had done an equity line on it, so he owed a bit more than that. The owner was actually a realtor as well. So the offer and short sale approval process. The date and terms of the offer. So we made our offer on February 7th. My client offered $495,000 plus requested $10,000 in credit towards her closing costs. And as I mentioned earlier, it was FHA financing, and she elected to do the minimum down payment of 3.5%. The short sale approval process. So First Franklin Corporation held the first and the second loan. The first loan, I think, was $580,000 on the first. There was a second held by First Franklin as well, and that was about $105,000. So altogether, there was just under just under $700K owed on the property. So the short sale actually was approved pretty quickly. It was approved on March 6th, so just about a month after our offer was made. I attribute that actually to the owner / realtor. He does quite a bit of short sale work. I shouldn't say quite a bit. He does a bit of short sale work, because I've actually showed some other properties where he was the listing agent before. So I think he had supposedly an offer in the very beginning of the listing period, and that kind of got the ball rolling, which is why our offer was approved pretty quickly. And you can see there that they gave us just about a month to close. So they gave us till April 6th to close. The bummer was that broker commissions was reduced to 3% total. That was between listing agent and selling agent. Go ahead, Nina.
I didn't think the listing agent could get anything if she was the owner.
Yeah, it was a little tricky because he actually had it listed on the MLS himself as the listing agent. And then as we got into the short sale, what he did was he had a colleague in his office take over the listing, and then it was listed under a colleague from his brokerage.
Nice.
So what I did negotiate with him was to, typically you see on the listing that any broker commission reductions will be split equally. So at the very least, I was able to negotiate for him to take 1% and me to take 2%. So it was still reduced, but not as badly as a 1.5% total commission. So the escrow process and log jams, and I think this is kind of what throws off short sales the most. We got lucky in this particular instance because we had pretty quick short sale approval process. The escrow process, on the other hand, was quite a roller coaster. So some of the issues that came up, one, the preliminary title report. There were about a year's worth of overdue property taxes and late fees. I think it was probably around $13,000 that he owed in late property tax. Now, fortunately, when he had negotiated with the short sale lender, he had actually built that into the payoff, so they knew that they were going to have to take over those late payments. The big surprise, though, was that there was a state tax lien against him, the seller, which was tied to the property. And that was about, I think it was about a $20,000 tax lien against him. So that was pretty rough.
Who paid for that?
Well, what eventually ended up happening was he had to go through the franchise tax board and negotiate a lien release so that the property could actually transfer title. That process took about 2.5 months for him to work with the franchise tax board to get that lien release. So,
Did he put a lien on another property for collateral, or how did he get
from
that?
my understanding, what they'll do is they'll provide a lien release just to allow the property to transfer title, and then the lien goes back to him. And I don't know how.
Goes on anything he's got.
I was going to say, I don't know what assets he had, but it would probably be connected to whatever he had left. Other things to keep in mind, and obviously I'm the selling agent on this property. It's different if you're the listing agent, but one thing to keep in mind as the selling agent is to keep an eye out and keep looking for recorded trustee sales. We actually had 2 different trustee sales scheduled during our escrow period. So what I did was, whenever I'd see that pop up, I would give him a call and say, I noticed that there's been a trustee sale recorded. How are you going to handle that? And then he had to go back and negotiate with the short sale lender to make sure that it would get postponed. But that was obviously pretty scary for my clients because we were kind of making progress and then potentially the house could be sold. And that actually happened to me. Last December, I was in a short sale. I had clients that were in escrow on an approved short sale, and the short sale lender foreclosed on the property during our escrow. So that's something to really keep an eye out for and communicate with the listing agent on. And then FHA appraisals. So 2 appraisals were required on the property. Value-wise, everything was fine. You can see that the property appraised for $510K and also $515,000. So they actually appraised for above the sales price. But FHA appraisers will look for certain red flags. They'll actually look at the condition of the property. So there were some required repairs. So you can see in these photos some of the things that were identified as red flags. And I haven't had too many FHA appraisals where they've noted things, but from what I understand, a big concern for them is properties where there is the potential for lead-based paint exposure. They're going to comment on any chipped and peeling paint. So you can see that some of the eaves and fascia of the house did have the chipped and peeling paint. The seller had done a partial remodel in the kitchen, so that one shot is actually of where it would be a backsplash in the kitchen, and you can see there's kind of some exposed space by the outlet. So they did require that these repairs be done in order to approve the property. Obviously it was a short sale, the seller was not going to contribute towards repairs, so it was a decision that my clients made to go ahead and do these repairs. They paid a contractor to do some of the work, and then, believe it or not, myself and my client did a lot of the work. So we actually were up painting on the eaves to make this 2% commission happen. But anyways, the good part of the story is that we did close. It was a 3-month escrow. We closed June 11th, and that is my short sale story. Yay!
Was Franklin the original lender, or was that they had bought the loan?
They had, yeah, that was not his original loan. So
Okay.
they had done a refinance and also an equity line for him.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the point is that you don't need to go to these people to do short pays. You're smart enough to do it on your own. You're smart enough to get in trouble on your own. I mean, get it done. And the DRE's